A BetterHelp ad. Hold on. 1 second. I just need to... What if you had a room where no one interrupts? No notifications, no expectations, just space to talk. With BetterHelp, therapy happens in a space that's yours. Visit betterhelp.com/randompodcast for 10% off your first month of online therapy.
Hi, this is Jonathan Fields, host of The Good Life Project. What if your home could welcome you at the door, energize your kitchen, and calm your bedroom all automatically? With Pure's family of smart diffusers, you can scent every space perfectly. Choose premium, clean fragrances, adjust the intensity, and set schedules right from your phone. It's whole home scenting designed for the way you live. Build your Pure system today at pure.com/wholehome.
It's Saturday, 20th of June. I'm Jamie East, and this was a week that saw the US and Iran sign off on a peace deal. Andy Burnham power to victory in Makerfield, a social media ban for teens announced, and tributes to a British icon, David Hockney.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
but not the news.
Late on Sunday night, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif announced that an agreement had been reached between the US and Iran that would see an immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including in Lebanon. The deal, which will see the Strait of Hormuz reopen, was due to be signed on Friday in Geneva, but it wasn't immediately clear what exactly it included. Both sides were keen to declare the deal a victory for them, but with Israel not a direct party to the deal, it may prove difficult to ensure a ceasefire in Lebanon. President Trump won't have been thrilled to hear former President Obama's thoughts on his deal either.
It is doubtful that any agreement that arises is going to be significantly different or a significant improvement from the deal that we had in the first place.
There was more mixed messaging from the US and Iran on Monday, even as an agreement was reached which would see the months-long war between the US, Israel and Iran come to an end. US President Donald Trump declared he's signed the deal already, although a ceremonial signing was originally scheduled for Friday in Geneva, which was to be attended by US Vice President J.D. Vance. Meanwhile, with Trump in France for the G7 summit, VP Vance was left to explain how the deal might work.
What the president really wanted to do is to get us to a place where we could change our relationship fundamentally with the Iranians and ensure that they never have a nuclear weapon. We feel that we're at that place now.
It appeared that Iran will be able to access reconstruction funds, but where they would come from was not clear, and the nuclear issue also appears unresolved. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu ruled out a withdrawal of Israeli forces from Lebanon, but was keen to claim a victory.
For decades, I have been fighting Iran's efforts to arm itself with nuclear weapons. I can define it as my life's mission. I have stood by it to this day, and I will stand by it in the future. With an agreement, without an agreement, Iran will not have nuclear weapons today or tomorrow.
President Trump on Tuesday at the G7 summit said he hoped to put the war in the rearview mirror, although talks on the next phase of the agreement, including the thorny issue of Iran's nuclear stockpile, which are due to start almost immediately after the formal signing. Trump was quick to restate his threats if a deal can't be reached on the nuclear issue, but was also clearly unhappy with former ally Israel.
Now, I'm not happy with the way Israel has handled themselves with Lebanon and with Hezbollah. It just goes on forever. And when that happens, it throws a negative light on the big deal, and that's the deal with Iran.
Vice President J.D. Vance has been doing the media rounds defending the deal, but also not revealing any specifics. There's been particular interest from the US media on the idea of a reconstruction fund for Iran, but the VP was determined that no American money would change hands.
We don't commit to doing anything as part of this deal. So the United States wins either way. What the president is trying to do is actually extend the hand of peace and say, if the Iranian people want greater prosperity, then their leadership has to step up and change their behavior.
As the G7 summit wrapped up in France, details finally emerged on the Memorandum of Agreement. The details, which were read out by White House officials to reporters on a call, include a commitment from Iran to downblend its uranium under the supervision of the International Atomic Energy Agency. There's also a commitment to a permanent halt to fighting, which includes in Lebanon, and sanctions relief, which is tied to nuclear commitments to be agreed during the 60-day window. Donald Trump certainly seemed happy with the deal as he spoke to reporters before departing for Washington, claiming he'd signed the deal himself in France.
There's never been anybody that's been so tough on Iran. This should have been done by Clinton and Barack Hussein Obama. It should have been done by Biden. It should have been done by Bush. It could have been done by a lot of people. This has been going on for 47 years.
The most difficult point in the deal still appears to revolve around Israel and Lebanon. Israel said they hadn't been given a copy of the memo, but the White House said they hadn't asked for it. Regardless, Israel's National Security Minister Ben-Gvir was giving no sign of conceding anything on Wednesday.
We must continue operating in Lebanon. We must continue to be independent. We love Trump, but we do not accept the agreement he signed, and we must continue on our own path.
The US formally lifted the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz on Thursday, even as sharp fractures appeared in the relationship between Israel and the US over the Memorandum of Agreement. The deal, which allows Iran to keep its missiles and requires Israel to withdraw from Lebanon while also lifting sanctions, has attracted fierce criticism from both Israel and some Republicans. The planned talks on Friday were cancelled after Israel and Hezbollah traded blows on Thursday evening, and US Vice President J.D. Vance was in the White House press room where he had a warning for Israel that they should not be attacking their only powerful ally, Donald Trump. Meanwhile, at the NATO summit in Brussels, US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth had a stark warning of his own for America's allies.
The United States has defended Europe for generations, and the president said that our jets would need to take off from bases in Europe to strike targets in the Middle East. But too many of our allies said no.
He warned that the US will carry out an assessment of its European allies and that some will fail. Meanwhile, Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper was offering reassurances that the UK will support the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz.
It's not just about oil and gas, it's also about fertiliser, it's about food crops across the globe. And if we don't get things moving fast, this has a long-term impact.
After last week's defence investment plan fiasco, Prime Minister Keir Starmer had to face the G7 leaders and President Trump with serious questions over the UK's defence budget. New Defence Minister Dan Jarvis has promised to review the plan and might potentially look for additional funding from the Treasury. His case will have been helped by the weekend's events, which saw the Royal Marines boarding an oil tanker, part of Russia's Shadow Fleet, which had been sailing south of the Isle of Wight on the way to India. The PM shared the video on social media, calling it a bad day to be Vladimir Putin, and Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy says it's an important moment.
I want to pay tribute to all of the Navy officers and others who've been involved in doing that. That is no small achievement, but it is also a significant blow to the Russians.
Tory Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge was keen to get the boot into the PM over the defence plan.
Politics aside, it is deeply worrying that the government were potentially on the cusp of producing something which, in the view of the previous Secretary for Defence, would have been dangerous for the country. I find that extraordinary.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer headed to France on Monday evening for the G7 summit, facing a potentially difficult week with pressure on the UK's defence investment plan and a by-election on Thursday which could lead to a full-on leadership contest. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch had little sympathy, however, choosing to speak on Monday about Tory funding plans and her plan to cut welfare and the list of those on benefits. She says if there were less people on welfare and more people in work, funding a defence plan would be far easier, but she wouldn't be drawn on whether or not the pension triple lock is actually on the table.
We came into 2010 with a lot of pensioner poverty. That is why the triple lock was put in place. Rather than moving money around and robbing Peter to pay Paul, what we need to do is to get people into work and start funding our defence.
The PM was sounding calm at the G7, but he's definitely not stepping back from a potential leadership contest either.
I don't think there should be a contest. If there is a contest, I intend to be in it and to fight it.
Meanwhile, with reports that a Russian frigate fired warning shots at a small yacht in the English Channel on Tuesday morning, the ongoing dispute over the defence investment plan isn't going away anytime soon. Former Defence Secretary John Healey gave his farewell speech from the backbenches on Tuesday after he quit his role last Thursday. He was sticking to his argument that the defence budget is simply not enough.
At this dangerous time, I see the current defence investment plans falling well short of what is required.
Thursday morning saw the polls open in the Greater Manchester suburb of Makerfield. The by-election that could change Britain's political future saw former Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham looking to return to the Commons and mount a challenge to Prime Minister Keir Starmer. The polls showed Burnham with a 5-point lead over Reform's Robert Kenyon. Former Health Secretary Wes Streeting was keen not to be forgotten. He quit his role last month so that he could run in a leadership contest, but he still hasn't fired the starting signal. Wednesday saw him start to lay out some of the themes for a potential campaign.
The more that this uncertainty goes on, it distracts from what the government is doing, some of which is very good and I support, like the social media ban, but it also detracts from the battle of ideas I think we need to have. I think we need a battle of ideas, not a battle of the rule book.
The Prime Minister was trying to walk a cautious line to make sure that Labour wins the by-election and to hold off the challenge of Burnham at the same time.
Yes, I want him to have a big role in government. When I came into politics in 2015, it was Andy Burnham's team that I joined and we worked very well together. If he comes back into Parliament, I hope he wins in the by-election, he'll be a fantastic asset for our party and for the country.
Early on Friday morning saw the results of what might be the most significant by-election ever held. Andy Burnham, the former Greater Manchester mayor, quit his role and stood for election so that he could challenge Prime Minister Keir Starmer for the chance to lead the government. He was facing stiff opposition from Reform, whose candidate Robert Kenyon, but won an impressive victory with a majority of more than 9,000 votes. He pledged that Makerfield would not be a stepping stone to number 10, but instead a touchstone for the change that the country needs.
Everyone knows that politics isn't working. Everyone can feel that the country isn't where it should be. Tonight just could, be the turning point.
Tuesday saw the leaders of the G7 gather in the French town of Evian with a long list of priorities to discuss, at the top of which was the ongoing Russian war in Ukraine. President Zelensky attended the gathering, along with the Indian PM, Egyptian President and the leaders of Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. The European leaders were working to refocus President Trump on Ukraine, and he did seem to at least acknowledge that Russia was in a weaker position. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says the whole world is coming to the same conclusion on the war in Ukraine.
There was a real sense of unity in the G7, a sort of shared consensus that things are changing, particularly this year. Ukraine has shown that it's able not just to defend itself, but to take territory back.
The Ukrainian president met with Trump on the edges of the summit, along with the host French President Emmanuel Macron, and he seemed positive after the chat and keen to emphasise that the tide is turning.
A huge percent of Russian people who understand that they began to understand that they are not winning this war, and that's why they have to stop this war.
Ukrainian drones once again hit targets in Moscow early on Thursday morning, damaging a major oil refinery and filling the skies above Russia's capital with black smoke. The change of tone has upset the Russians, with Putin aide Yuri Ushakov claiming European leaders had filled President Trump with harmful ideas about the war. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen weighed in after a Brussels meeting with President Zelensky.
There is a special momentum right now. I have the impression the tide is turning. We see that Ukraine is holding the line, even partially regaining territory. Ukraine has a very strong moment.
The Ukrainian president has been warning Russia that if Ukraine burns, Russia burns too, and he was happy to announce a new deal with NATO allies which will see Patriot air defence systems and ballistic missile defence systems prioritised.
When we know that Russia is preparing a massive strike against Ukraine and we are able to receive Patriot missiles the day before that attack, it helps save lives.
This week saw anticipation build in advance of a speech by Prime Minister Keir Starmer on the long-awaited social media ban for teens. The government completed a consultation process that had over 80,000 submissions, and according to Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy, the majority of the responses favoured a ban. Australia was the first to ban teens at the end of last year, and data from that process has also been considered, although some internet safety campaigners have criticised what they call the sledgehammer approach of a ban and would rather see closer policing of platforms. Lisa Nandy told the BBC that the process has been fair and open.
The responses to the consultation were overwhelmingly clear. That came through from not just from parents and from campaigners, from many young people themselves who are feeling that they're being pulled into something quite toxic at a very young age.
Monday saw Prime Minister Keir Starmer make the announcement that most teenagers have probably been dreading: a ban on social media for those under 16.
Social media is making children unhappy. It's making it easier for bullies to harass and abuse them.
And it could even be harming their mental health.
The UK will institute a ban by next spring, following a consultation in which 89% of parents and carers strongly supported the idea. The ban may see apps like TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X, Snapchat and even YouTube blocked, but will allow messaging services like WhatsApp and Signal. It's not clear how the ban will be implemented, and there remain concerns that teens will find workarounds, but even Tory Shadow Education Secretary Laura Trott says it's time.
We've tried policing content. It hasn't worked. If you look at what a 13-year-old boy is seeing on social media every single day, it's real-life violence, it's pornography. We need to police age now and not content.
The reaction from teens wasn't exactly positive, with a BBC school vox pop hitting the nail on the head.
What was your screen time over the weekend?
9 hours.
You're going to have a lot more time to fill. And what will you do?
Stare at a wall.
Some more details emerged on Tuesday about the planned ban. A final list of platforms to be banned hasn't been released as yet, but it appears that live streaming and chat functions on some sites, such as Roblox, will be banned. The government is also considering introducing an overnight curfew and how best to implement a stop to infinite scrolling for anyone under 18. The intention is to protect children from harm, but campaigners are already warning that tech-capable teens will find workarounds pretty quickly. Technology Secretary Liz Kendall says that things like VPNs, which allow users to switch locations, are on her list.
I said to MPs I'll come back in July with a further statement around VPNs, but also additional measures that we want to look at, further restrictions on AI chatbots, more about overnight curfews or breaks in doom scrolling for 16 and 17-year-olds.
Still to come on the Standout 7, in association with Metro, the World Cup cranks up and tributes to an icon of British art. Right after this.
Hi, this is Jonathan Fields, host of The Good Life Project. What if your home could welcome you at the door, energize your kitchen, and calm your bedroom all automatically? With Pure's family of smart diffusers, you can scent every space perfectly. Choose premium, clean fragrances, adjust the intensity, and set schedules right from your phone. It's whole home scenting designed for the way you live. Build your Pure system today at pure.com/whole home.
Running a business means juggling a lot of moving parts. And when your communication tools can't keep up, things start to slip. Missed calls, slow replies, scattered conversations. They're not just frustrating, they're lost opportunities and revenue left on the table. That's where Quo comes in, spelled Q-U-O. Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by over 90,000 businesses. One shared business number for calls and texts, so every conversation stays visible, organized, and accountable. It works from an app or computer. You can keep your existing number, add teammates, and sync your CRM, letting you scale without adding complexity. And with built-in AI, Quo logs calls, summarizes conversations, and flags next steps, even after hours. Stop missing customers. Stop leaving revenue on the table. Try Quo free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/tech. That's QUO.com/tech. Quo. No missed calls, no missed customers.
Welcome back. This week has seen plenty of World Cup drama, with some shock results including Belgium drawing with Egypt and Iran getting a 2-2 result against New Zealand in Los Angeles. There was also a huge shock as the mighty Spain could only manage a goalless draw against World Cup minnows Cape Verde, who are at their first ever World Cup. England were set to face Croatia in their first World Cup game on Wednesday, and ahead of the game in Dallas, Jordan Henderson was tipping Jude Bellingham as the man to watch.
Honestly, couldn't speak highly enough of him. You know, I know a lot gets written. I find it hard to read sometimes, really, because I just know how big an influence he is on this team, how good a teammate he is off the field. And what he gives us is just something really special.
Wednesday saw England get their World Cup campaign underway in Dallas with a successful start against Croatia. Earlier on in the evening, Cristiano Ronaldo made his first appearance in his 6th World Cup, but his Portugal side could only draw with the Democratic Republic of Congo, who were making only their 2nd World Cup appearance. Harry Kane opened the scoring for England with a penalty, but Croatia applied plenty of pressure in the first half before England turned things around to win the game 4-2. Questions will remain about England's defence, but a fiery speech by manager Thomas Tuchel at half-time certainly impressed Captain Kane.
And credit to the manager. The manager gave us a speech at half-time just to say, look, if we lose, we lose.
we're losing our way. And I think you saw that how the way we come out in the second half, we went full gas, and they couldn't live with it. And that's the level we have to set for every game. So credit to everyone. The first game of the tournament, a great result against a tough side.
As the week went on, we moved into the second round of fixtures in the World Cup, with joint hosts Mexico beating South Korea 1-0, while the Czech Republic drew with South Africa. Fellow host Canada clocked up a 6-0 win over Qatar to pick up their first ever World Cup victory. Saturday sees group leader Scotland back in action against Morocco, and Steve Clarke was sounding quietly confident.
Sometimes the Scottish psyche, the Scottish mentality is that we're a little bit more comfortable when we're the underdogs. We were the favourites against Haiti, and we found the game a struggle, but we managed to win. This time we're the underdogs, and sometimes Scotland prefer it that way.
There was incredibly good news on Thursday as a new study found that the HPV vaccine has effectively eliminated cervical cancer for young women. The study was funded by Cancer Research UK, and it tracked teenagers who received the HPV vaccine, which was offered in schools from 2008. For the first time ever, there were no deaths from cervical cancer recorded in the 20 to 24-year-old age group, a landmark breakthrough. Cancer Research UK's CEO is Michelle Mitchell, and she says it's an extraordinary example of the power of vaccination.
What we see is clear national evidence that the HPV vaccine is not just preventing cancer, but saving lives. And it is one of the most powerful examples of cancer prevention working at population scale.
Last weekend, the death was announced of artist David Hockney, just weeks before his 89th birthday. The British artist was considered one of the most influential and defining figures in contemporary art, and his love of vibrant colour saw the Pompidou Centre in Paris, which had hosted major exhibitions of his art, describe his work as dazzling, alive and eternal. He moved from the UK to California and was part of the 60s cultural scene, with Paul McCartney among those paying tribute to his clever and witty friend. He set a record in 2018 when his swimming pool picture entitled Portrait of an Artist sold in New York for $90 million, a record for a living artist. His passing inspired a tribute from fellow artist Scarlett Clark and granddaughter of the artist's muse Celia Birtwell, which caused embarrassment for the BBC as she shared advice that Hockney had given her. Rest in peace, David.
He just said to enjoy and paint what you love and just everyone.
Oh,
sorry.
Apologies for that.
I'm so sorry.
No.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes, we'll give you the world.
When everything is moving all at once, your workforce, your tech stack, your business, you don't need more tools. You need one solution. That's why Paylocity built a single platform to connect HR, finance, and IT with AI-driven insights and automated workflows that simplify the complex and power what's next. Because when everything comes together in one place, growth comes easy. Experience one place for all your HCM needs. Start now at Paylocity.com/one.
When opportunity requires capital, be ready. Ledin's Bitcoin-backed loans give you liquidity across time zones 24/7. When timing matters, access to capital is critical. Ledin gives you liquidity so you can move quickly without disrupting your Bitcoin position. And Ledin has funded over $11 billion in loans since 2018, with a perfect track record of protecting client assets. Get a Ledin Bitcoin-backed loan today. Visit Ledin.io.